Iron ore is a very important resource during wartime. It can be used to make guns, armor, and aircraft. During the Second World War, Germany's main supplier of iron ore was Sweden, who would export the ore through neutral Norway. Realizing this, the British Royal Navy laid mines around Norway's sea borders to force any ships into international waters. Desperate to secure their supply of iron ore, Germany began to plan an invasion of Norway. While the invasion of Norway was being planned, Germany decided it would also be a good idea to invade Denmark. This was so they could use the Danish airfields during the Norwegian invasion. So on the 9th of April, German forces entered Denmark. Overwhelmed, the Danish government surrendered 6 hours later. The Germans then began to land troops in Norwegian ports. Unfortunately, the Royal Navy didn't see the German ships due to a miscommunication. The Norwegians fought hard, but due to an outdated military, they were no match for the German war machine. During the Battle of Norway, Norwegian forces, now with the support of the United Kingdom and France, nearly managed to push the Germans to the Swedish border, as British forces left to assist the French during the Battle of France. Speaking of that, after the Battle of Norway, Germany decided it would be a good idea to invade France. During the 1930s, the French had made a heavily defended line called the Maginot Line. This was to make sure the Germans would never be able to invade France through the Franco-German border. Unfortunately for them, the Germans had a different strategy. On the 10th of May 1940, the Germans launched an attack into the Low Countries. Belgian and Dutch soldiers attempted to quell the German forces, but the Luftwaffe put an end to that. Despite being assisted by an Anglo-French force, the Dutch surrendered on the 15th of May 1940. The Allies expected Hitler to continue his attack from the north. Unfortunately, they were mistaken. The Germans launched an invasion through the heavily dense Ardennes region with their tanks. Using a very effective tactic called blitzkrieg, the Germans encircled the Anglo-French forces. Realizing how dire the situation was, the British staged a mass evacuation at Dunkirk, leaving the French to fend for themselves. Separated from their allies, the French government fell to Hitler. The Germans decided to occupy the coastal areas of France for defense, but left the south to govern itself as a German puppet state, known as Vichy France. At this point, Hitler sought to invade the United Kingdom. By the 10th of January 1940, 60 German bombers attacked a very large convoy of British ships on the Channel. The Battle of Britain has begun. The outnumbered Royal Air Force bravely fought off waves of German bombers. By the 7th of September 1940, the Germans began a bombing campaign called the Blitz. London and other major cities were bombed heavily. British civilians would often take trips to air raid shelters, and children were shipped off to the countryside to avoid the bombs. However, the Blitz did give the RAF time to fix runways and produce more aircraft. As mid-September rolls around, the Luftwaffe is no closer to gaining air superiority, but they continue on with their bombing campaign. September the 15th is the Germans' last chance to gain air superiority. Unfortunately for the Germans, they are decimated by the Royal Air Force. Benito Mussolini was the fascist dictator of Italy. In 1939, he signed the Pact of Steel, militarily aligning himself with Germany. Then in September 1940, he signed the Tripartite Pact, which brought Japan into the mix. Mussolini's main goal was to reunite the Roman Empire, and that meant taking control of North Africa. On the 9th of September 1940, Italian troops crossed into British Egypt from Italian Libya. The Italians got as far as the city of Sidi Barrania, I've probably mispronounced that, I'm sorry, before running out of supplies. Capitalizing on the opportunity, the British launched an Anglo-Indian army against the Italians. British armour constantly defeated Italians due to British forces clumping together. 3 days after the counterattack started, Italian forces had all been pushed back to Libya. On December 27, 1940, British armour and Australian troops launched an offensive into Bardia. The city was heavily defended with machine gun nests, but after a 9-day siege, they captured the city. Thank you for watching this video. It took a long time to make, and I'm not going to make excuses this time, I just spent ages writing the script. If you'd like to see more of this series, then I recommend subscribing to the channel. The next episode will be about 1941, although I might make a filler video in between it. Goodbye.